Multiple staff changes leading to 2 flips for UCLA in their favor. My, oh my, what does that mean? Well, UCLA is a quarterback, but do they still need to hit the portal?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free where we get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, as you can keep the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. If you win it, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started today is UCLA in a wacky week that is barely coming to an end if you got a Monday through Friday work week. UCLA has changed coaches in the secondary. They have now changed offensive coordinators and seen 3 commits flip and 2 commits come in. What a weird, wacky week. Okay, let's refresh. What's going on? There's staff changes and there's commits. Let's start with, I think, the big news, which is UCLA getting a borderline 3 to 4 star quarterback, depending on what ranking system you use. It's Robert McDaniel, a commit who initially had pledged his allegiance to Cal way back when. Then, for a long time, actually was committed to Arizona, I think since earlier this year with Brett Brennan. And then probably, after seeing how Arizona did this year, combined with the, is Noah Fafita going to stay there? Is he going to leave? You never really know when that guy's going to be the head man, how long he's going to be there, if it's a year or two, because I think Fafita's got at least 2 more years if he wants. Then McDaniel, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, on December 5th, late the Thursday evening, he comes in and commits to UCLA. He flips, all right? He absolutely changes his commitment, and he was the only Arizona commit that decided not to go to Arizona, all right? Kind of like how UCLA was early signing day. There wasn't, I guess in my mind, a lot of news about Madden and Jace Brown, and then they flipped, right? There was kind of some building momentum towards Sitanale flipping from the day before, and then, of course, with UCLA getting a new DB's coach in Demetrius Martin, that brought in LaRue Zamorano. So 2 big flips, 3 to 4 stars that are at positions of need for UCLA. And let's tell you about what the new OC had to deal with this, right? Tino Sinceri, he's been written about in this On 3 article I'm looking at about how McDaniel already has a relationship with him, right? This is what he had to say about him. With me having a great relationship with Coach Tino, I felt confident that I'm going to be coached the right way, and I can't wait to get out to go to Westwood. And this is what the scouting department has to say. I'm reading from On 3, a skilled pocket passer who led his California school to the best season in the last 20 years. They were undefeated in recent weeks, 6-1. He's thrown for 2,700 yards, close to 2,800, 33 touchdowns and 5 picks, and was in the Elite 11 finals. What is that? That's a big quarterback competition. It's more 7-on-7. If you've ever seen it on TV, generally in the summer, and it's an invite-only quarterback camp to see who are like the top 11 quarterbacks in the country are close to there. So being invited is one thing. Competing to the actual finals is another, and placing is a whole nother thing entirely. But being invited is a huge thing. So UCLA, I think, has found ways to replace the guys they lost, right? They got Lucian Holland to flip from Boise State, which meant that really padded the loss of Epi Sitanale to Ohio State. You bring in Zamorano to just bolster the secondary, which is in need of a lot more talent. And then you bring in McDaniel, who is flirting with 4-star / 3-star potential, and flip him from a former Pac-12 rival in Arizona. And that's going to mean a lot of young quarterbacks in the system for UCLA. From last year's class, you got Gamino, who's coming in. So you got 2 incoming freshmen this year, but somebody who's already come in with a relationship with UCLA's incoming offensive coordinator. Do I think UCLA still needs somebody from the portal, or at least test a shop and see if they can go get some of the better arms? Is it the former USC quarterback in Miller Moss? Is it the combination of a Matt Sluka, a Jackson Arnold, those are some big names leaving their schools for very different reasons, but both dual threat guys, and still more guys to follow after that, after the playoffs have gone, and probably more shocking portal entries still to come because it doesn't officially open until December 9th. These are just a bunch of guys who have pledged to go to the portal with the portal window opening to start making transfers and everything, right? I do think UCLA needs to absolutely hit the portal. Deshaun Foster talked about it after early signing day. UCLA has to prove that they have the NIL budget to go get somebody. And you can't fully rely on, hey, this kid says he's got a relationship with this offensive coordinator. I think that's good. That's a big flip. That adds and boosts UCLA's class to have even more quarterbacks in this class. And I say the more competition, the better. But UCLA certainly still needs to find somebody to keep the upper echelon, get a veteran presence in there that's actually played in a game for UCLA's portal, for in the quarterback position. Now you look at the staff changes. UCLA has Brian Norwood, I saw on social media, announced he's no longer with UCLA. So that is the swap there in the UCLA coaching staff with Martin, who's not even officially hired, right? Deshaun Foster wouldn't even officially comment on him and his ability to bring in a commit because he's not official. So even though I think I've seen UCLA has thrown a couple offers and Martin's already having a big opportunity there, maybe this is something that's been behind the scenes, just like the Bieniemy ending with Juan Castillo leading to Tino Sinceri coming in on the same day, just a few hours after Bieniemy's gone, you bring a new offensive coordinator. This is probably something that's been building, or at least Deshaun Foster has been working it, whether it's recruiting, maybe knowing these guys are going to leave, currently having his player meetings and saying goodbye, or, there's going to be a big roster crunch and trying to figure out how UCLA is going to handle all these different things with the scholarships expanding, but an absolute roster crunch with I think the roster's going down to 105 or something. So there's a bunch of opportunities out there for UCLA to go get players. You've lost your offensive coordinator and O-line coach, two of the more maligned figures, you could argue, especially with Eric Bieniemy, the head of that. And then you lose Norwood, but you bring in somebody back to a UCLA staff in Martin and already an amazing recruiting presence that UCLA has at a position of need. And maybe I'm not going to go out and slam Norwood's coaching, but maybe that's going to lead to better players coming in from a recruiting presence. Maybe there's a switch. I don't really know what's the behind the scenes there specifically that led to the switch, but it seems like it's already having a positive impact in this year's recruiting class, hopefully next year's growth in talent on the field, and then in future recruiting classes to follow. And then with Tino, he hasn't even been at UCLA for like 24 hours, and he's already getting a commit to flip and go to UCLA. Just like that. And yes, UCLA might miss some of the guys who have flipped or committed, or maybe they'll be better off for it. But at the moment, everything UCLA has either messed up in a hire, lost in the portal, the Bruins have brought something in to negate that loss, or maybe that might be a better fit, or said, hey, we think this guy is going to go after the bigger bag. Maybe he's going to go after something else. They've had an answer for it in the offseason. Now the big thing Deshaun Foster is going to have to prove to us in 2025 is, what's the answer to a 5-7 2024 season? I might say that the expectations are even lower in 2025 at this point. Losing some potential talent offense, having to replace the defense, having to first and foremost make sure you keep a Kaika Malloy and make sure that he does not get pulled from UCLA's hold and be like, hey, come on, stay here at UCLA. Don't let somebody else throw a big stack of cash his way and bring him somewhere else. Keep your DC. You've already solved the OC, position, and maybe surprise some teams in 2025. The roster needs a major upgrade still in various spots, the line, the quarterback position, if they can go get somebody in the portal, and then finding, I think, a few more linebackers in the portal somewhere, because I'm not sure I've seen anything about Carson Swessinger staying or going pro. There's a whole bunch of things what Swessinger can do, because he had a fantastic end of his career. So I haven't seen any sort of announcement for him, which could make a big difference for UCLA in the middle of the field. Next up, UCLA has a big-time conference battle against Oregon. Who are players to look out for? What does that mean for UCLA? Talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to go crawl through a bed of hot coals or something just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy, no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, you had to call them on it, right? Well, it turns out it really is that easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month. The longest process was probably being on hold to break up the old provider, because to get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege and you'll see all 3-month plans are $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. Unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number. That's how easy it is. To get this new customer offer, your new 3-month wireless premium plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. It's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower than above 40 gigabytes unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, segment 2. We're getting back to the basketball side of things. UCLA has a big-time basketball battle against the Oregon Ducks. They already took down Washington. They didn't look all too impressive. They won by double figures. If you're going by the spread, UCLA actually didn't cover against Washington. The line was minus 11.5 at home. But the Bruins, they kept trying to pull away from Washington, and they just couldn't. So there's been a lot of home games recently for UCLA. The only true away from Paulie experience, right? It wasn't even a true road game. It was a neutral site game against New Mexico. And the Bruins flat out played terribly. It could arguably have been a terrible mismatch with New Mexico's size and UCLA's lack thereof. But the lack of focus with the amount of turnovers, Mick Cronin said we would have lost to a D2 team that evening if they had played that poorly against anybody. So that's how much he was just absolutely flustered and frustrated with his team. Oregon comes in. I'm very jaded about this Oregon front, all right? I'd like to see what Oregon is, because the most meaningful national television time I was really watching Oregon early in the season was when they played Portland. And by golly, they should have lost to Portland at home. They were down double figures most of the game and took a miraculous comeback in the final minute to get that game to overtime, where they finally put away the Pilots. I was able to broadcast the next game Portland played. They played a now 2-8 Long Beach team, and they barely beat them and almost lost to Long Beach. And Portland hasn't done anything significant since, and they lost to UC Santa Barbara by 40. And they were about to lose to a D2 team on opening night. That was Oregon's closest home defeat. That was the closest chance they came to losing this year at home. Then they go to this Players Era Festival and beat a bunch of significant teams in a row, and I was as crushed and confused as it gets. I didn't think Oregon would be sitting here undefeated on the verge of a top 10 ranking, and might be by the end of the week, depending on how the UCLA-Oregon game goes, they might be the highest ranked team in the Big Ten, because Purdue's lost. There's been a bunch of big-time upsets in Big Ten play, right? Rutgers has already lost to Kennesaw State earlier in the year. Purdue lost, right? They're to Penn State. Up and down. Now, Oregon almost lost at SC. SC gave them a battle as the Galen Center. So in a true road game, Oregon almost fell. But there are some familiar faces for the team that ended UCLA season last year, and they themselves went on that darling run through the Pac-12 tournament, won the tournament, and got to the NCAA tournament. So Dana Altman obviously knows how to coach, knows how to get talent, and has some former foes from former schools UCLA's played in the past. You can remember the names like Brandon Angel. He's played a long career at Stanford. He's utilizing his COVID year. You've got TJ Bamba. Remember that name? That was from Washington State. So he is a former Cougar that is about to have his, I think, 7th battle against UCLA, because he went to Villanova and has now gone back to the West Coast. And then there's Keyshawn Barthelemy, who came from Colorado. But UCLA is truly going to have to handle multiple things, right? The leading scorer for the Ducks is 7-footer Nate Biddle. So this is an opportunity for Will Kyle, for Adai Mara, to come in there and get some minutes, because the leading scorer is averaging 14 points, 9 rebounds. UCLA is going to need some size in the post. I'm not sure if that means Cronin's going to mix up his starting lineup, or if he's going to go to his athletic big man or his big 7'3" Spaniard sooner, or we'll see a lot more where UCLA plays big to handle Oregon, because a lot of this Oregon roster is built around guard play, all right? If you look based on size and just how these teams play, I would like to think that they play pretty similarly and also have similar size across the board. It's a lot of guards and one big man. UCLA hasn't really solidified having that big man in the lineup, but they have the size with Mara being bigger than Biddle and the athleticism with Kyle, despite being a little shorter than Biddle, to go to boot there. He can go to battle. So I think the big battles in this game will be, can UCLA withstand the pressure in the post? Because if Biddle goes out there and scores 25 on, 8 of 10 and a bunch of free throws and hits a 3, even though he's been ice cold from 3 this year, I think Biddle is 3 of 21. He has not been very good at three-point shooting. He's about 14% from 3. But if he knocks down a couple for some weird reason in this game at Matthew Knight Arena, if he comes in, gets 12 rebounds, and is shooting 80% for the game, then UCLA is going to have a very, very, very hard time winning this game. Another thing I think about in this game, TJ Bamba. A lot of the Oregon guards, including Bamba, are volume shooting guards, like 16, 13 shots, 5 for 13. And if any of them get hot, then UCLA is not going to win this game. All right. They will not win this game if any of the guards, from Barthélemy to Jackson, Shellstad to Bamba, if any of them get red hot, then UCLA is not going to win this game. Bamba's biggest 3-game stretch came when they beat Texas A&M, San Diego State, and Alabama. All those correlate with the games he played about the most amount of minutes, averaging, he played 52 and he scored 52 in 3 games, 18 against A&M, 22 against San Diego State, and 12 against Alabama. So UCLA has to withstand a volume shooting Oregon team. So one, can UCLA handle the pressure in the post? If they can't, very low chances of winning this game. If they can be close to even with the production from Mara and Kyle combined, or maybe we see Bilodeau go toe-to-toe with Biddle in a sense, but that's just a mismatch I don't think UCLA wants to be a part of, at least offensively to defensively. Bilodeau can go get his buckets, but in the post, I think Biddle would eat up Bilodeau. Now for UCLA, the one game they played away from home, they played atrociously, all right? Oregon, last year they sped up the Bruins. They forced a lot of turnovers in Eugene with some half-court, three-quarter courts pressure. This is a true test to UCLA's backcourt depth. If UCLA, with their 10-deep lineup, can't handle Oregon's backcourt depth, then all this transfer portal talk and hype I've been proclaiming, all the guys Cronin's been getting, has somewhat been for naught, because this is a true test. If Oregon's guards go out and ball you up, and then UCLA can't answer with anything, whether it's Mack coming on, whether it's Stefanovic for a Kobe Johnson, all these guys and the depth UCLA has, if they can't handle it, then that would just absolutely suck. This is a game UCLA to win it on the road for a big early national reemergence for the Bruins prior to their big non-conference games later in December. This is the biggest game. I think Oregon, other than Gonzaga, is the highest ranked game. Arizona's fallen. North Carolina's fallen from grace a little bit. This is a chance. You win this game, you can all of a sudden have your eyes creeping towards Big Ten crown. Because I think UCLA, this would be probably the toughest game any Big Ten team has had in the early window of games. On the road at Oregon, all right? Purdue lost on the road. UCLA can say they would have won on the road at Oregon. So pressure the post, and then against the Ducks, UCLA has to shoot 50% from 3, I think. Unless Sebastian Mack goes the line 15 times and hits 14 or 15 free throws, and the Bruins play very crisp with no turnovers, then I think UCLA has to counter some of those mistakes, the lack of production I'm expecting in the post, with some three-point barrage. Maybe it's a long stretch where they make a bunch. Maybe it's a respectable 43, 42% game where they make a bunch and they're doing pretty well. Any of those options, I think UCLA can do that to win the game. They're not favored to win this game. They have a chance. And I think it's about, you look at the lineup, pretty even. Now, production-wise, it has been even, but just kind of on paper and you look at the skill sets, I think it's even with size, depth, what these lineups are trying to do, what the coaches are trying to do. It's pretty similar, I think. Now we'll see what the Bruins can do in a huge game in Eugene, which could redefine what the month of November was, just building and boring. That Oregon game hopefully won't be. Next, UCLA women have a big injury to announce. All right, folks, go check out FanDuel. If you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. Again, FanDuel, if you're a new customer, go check out America's #1 sports book. And hey, maybe you want to get some action on the UCLA-Oregon game. Maybe you think UCLA is going to cover on the road. If you're a new customer, bet a $5 bet, you win it, get $150 in bonus bets. All right, all with FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the big news we're wrapping the show up on is that Charlize Ledger-Walker, who I thought was UCLA's best get in the portal, and that's saying a lot. The Bruins have had a lot to come in the portal, whether it's Barker, whether it's Tamika Gardner. UCLA has got a lot of production in the portal over the last few years, including Lauren Betts. This year, I thought Ledger-Walker was the steal. Had the big ACL injury in the victory against UCLA earlier in 2024. But in the end, I think what Corey Close was saying, I think in a previous week, with media availability was that decisions will have to be made about Ledger-Walker and her availability. And if she's not coming to late December, early January, and the Bruins are already #1 in the country, unbeaten, about to play, I think, Washington in their Big Ten opener. They only have one, not two, like the men do. They already beat South Carolina by 20, right? They literally dominated South Carolina, who has gone on and been a wrecking ball, destroying other teams in their path. And a lot of the teams, like a top 4 Texas, all the other teams have fallen. LSU was pushed to the brink at home against Stanford. So UCLA, alongside UConn and maybe South Carolina, are separating themselves without a loss right now and could be a clear-cut 1 and 2 team because they destroyed South Carolina already. Now, TCU is about to play South Carolina. That's a huge matchup to look at if you're a women's basketball, college basketball fan. And that could be a good measuring stick. If TCU beats South Carolina, that means, all right, they're in the top 3. If they lose and South Carolina beats them down, then all of a sudden UCLA is like, hey, they are clearly really good, and I think their best potential player from the portal this season won't be healthy, and she's not going to be playing till the 2025 season. Or the 25-26 season. So she's going to utilize a medical redshirt. That means UCLA has another depth weapon in the following year when Kiki Rice, Lauren Betts, Hawkes, and Jones are all seniors. Think about that. And then Lauren Betts, her little sister Sienna, is coming to play. And that means there's going to be so much talent on next year's roster. Of course, the portal will play an effect. It'll probably play some, something. But UCLA is losing, I think, one of their best portal pieces in this season. Now, I think they should be able to handle Washington. They should be able to win their Big Ten opener. We'll find out how it goes. It's kind of the countdown until the USC game. And until then, hopefully UCLA wraps up, gets big 15 to 20 to 25-point victories, showcases it, stays healthy, and gets the job done every time they can. Because right now, they're flirting back and forth with, all right, #1, unanimous #1, are they? Yes, no, they're not there. People still think the UConn name is bigger than what UCLA's talent is this year. But we won't know until they play USC, who does play UConn later this year. And if USC beats UConn, and UCLA has already beat South Carolina, then the Bruins could be the clear-cut #1 until they play the Trojans at home and on the road, which will be very entertaining to define their season this year. They're already really good. Ledger-Walker out for the year after that decision was made. She wouldn't be back till January. I was hoping she'd be okay, but that ends up not being the case. But until then, UCLA is the #1 in the country. Big Bruins basketball, and we'll always keep you updated with the latest portal news, thoughts, targets, coaching changes here on Locked On UCLA. Like, comment, subscribe, download for your support. Thanks for tuning in. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight. This has been Locked on UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.